Welcome to Whose Turn Is It Anyway, a podcast all about our gaming group and of course board games. I'm Dan, your current first player, and I'm joined around this lovely table by Davey.
Hello.
Adrian.
Hello.
And Kerley.
Hello.
Hello everybody. First things first is a massive thanks to everyone who has supported us on Coffee, which is amazing. We've done so well on that, so thank you to everybody. Truly, it means the world to us. We are going to talk about BoardGameGeek today, but before we do that, how are we all doing?
Yeah, doing all right.
Yeah?
Yeah. Not too bad.
Yeah?
Not too shabby. Yeah, it hasn't stopped raining, which is...
No, it's very...
We'll talk about the weather, because we're British.
We're British,
well,
why not?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We'll ease it in with a bit of weather talk.
Weatherman got it wrong today as well, put me washing on the line.
Oh, no!
Rained early.
In November?
Rained it early. He
brave.
said it wasn't going to do it until like 4 o'clock. Weatherman
You're
got it wrong.
brave.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Disgraceful.
Never
Did you
believe
roll
the
for
weatherman.
initiative before putting it out?
No.
That's the problem.
What was it going to be? Me versus the washing? Washing's at +2.
I would pay to see that fight.
That's
right.
Just watch me put...
Versus a washing.
You roll and one. All of a sudden, the washing machine just takes off.
Just watch me make a bed. That's me fighting on my own. Got it over myself and trying to find the corners.
That's going to be on our new coffee subscription model, is watch Adrian make his bed.
Nice. So yes, I mean, there's been like, what, 2 storms?
Yeah.
Like, one was called what?
Kieran.
Kieran and Debs.
This one's... Yeah, I don't know what this one
Debs.
is. Yeah.
Call it Debs.
Yeah.
Should we get on to our first segment?
Why not?
Do it.
I mean, you
about
haven't
it.
asked how I am, but you know, it's fine.
I asked how everyone was.
No, it's fine. Don't care anymore.
Do you know what?
Shove it up your arse.
It's going to be a good fun pod. Roll the thing. So, let's talk about Hex. Guys, what have we been up to? Let's start with you, shall we, Kerley? You are dying to speak. I can tell by the look on your face.
Yeah, dying. So, I had a really busy few weeks actually with board gaming, but probably the most noteworthy, because as all of the listeners know, I like replaying the same games over and over and over again, was actually a new game, Perseverance Episode 3. So that's the brand new, what Davey says, Hotness, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, brand new Hotness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so got a sneak preview, episode 3 from Mind Clash, on a rules teach video with Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules. With me, JP, and him. It was really good fun. Obviously, anyone who's played the first 2, just to give you a bit of an idea. And I thought, running with the theme of the episode, I would give you the little blurb from episode 3 from BGG. Ooh. Just give you a little bit of the story. So, in Perseverance, finally safe from dinosaur attacks and has grown into a bustling city. As players discover how to tame and ride the dinosaurs, including the new Thunderhorn and Ironjaw species, as their primary action they may now choose to send the dino rider into the far reaches of the island, instead of placing a die in the city. Besides streamlining some of the usual area majority elements, Episode 3 takes a new approach focusing on engine and tableau building. City landmarks provide powerful passive benefits, while players may build and customise their own ranches on their player boards, activating them as a secondary action using the new supply resource acquired from the wilderness. But yeah, it's really interesting. You can gain dinos from various different actions, and you can go on adventures similar to what you did, but now you're unlocking the map as it kind of goes up. You start off just being able to access the swamp, and then you access the jungle and then the hills, and you gain different benefits. You gain new dinos you can then tame, going forwards. Unlock new temples, which is a really interesting mechanic, where if you take the area that's the temple, then all of those unlocks of taming is free from then on, which it makes an interesting kind of engine builder. So absolutely love it. The idea of it is just going from the episode 1 where you first land and you're fighting off the dinos and you're trying to just survive, to episode 2 where you go, okay, now we've survived and now we're just starting to branch out a little bit, to episode 3 where you're starting to tame dinos. And I believe episode 4 has recently been leaked. as to what is actually going on with that.
I think it's part on the GameFound
Yeah.
page now. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
you
So
had me at
that's-
riding dinos.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, this is
it's about whether you want to leave the island or kind of stay on the island, and you've
Yeah.
got like ships, and there's a big monster coming, I think. Or something
Well,
like that.
I haven't looked up the full details, but from what I understand, there's like an alien / dimensional other species that originally came to this island. And that's where all the temples came from,
Yeah.
and basically they come back. So you've
Yeah.
got to, and they're not very nice, and they don't like us very much. So the idea is that you can either stay and try and fight them, or you can build a ship and leave. Both, I believe, are win conditions, and yeah, that's the final chapter.
Yeah.
So
That bit kind of reminds me of Anachrony, where you have to kind of choose to stay for a little bit longer, or you evacuate a bit earlier.
Yeah.
yeah, so definitely something I'm really looking forward to. Episode 3, I would say, as a general thought from it, a little bit more lightweight, I would say. But
What,
just
an
as
episode 1 or episode 2?
so, I would say somewhere in between the two, but I was referring to episode 2.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as complicated, but it's got the same feel. So it's made it a little bit easier and accessible without ruining the feel of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
There's only one thing, the ranch system I haven't got my head around just yet, because it seems like all engine and no output at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think that'll just be a matter of play, and keeping in mind as well that although we had a very finalised version of the game, the rulebook they were still tweaking, so it might well be that there's some balancing stuff that has to go in as well. But went really well. Really loved the game. Probably my favourite of the 3, and considering the other 2 are up there in my top 10, that is definitely
High
an
praise.
advert for that one. Yeah, so
Nice. I've backed
looking
it.
forward to getting it to the table. Yeah, you've backed it, and
Yeah.
JP's backed
Yeah,
it, I assume
absolutely.
as well. So I would have backed it, but I don't get a look in with you put around. It suits my bank balance quite well.
You could back it and then just keep it sealed. And have it there.
That's like my copy of Eclipse. That I just love it so much. I want my copy. I never play it, but
Yeah, you want your copy. Yeah. Adrian, what have you been up to?
I've been the total opposite end of the scale, and I've had no games really. I've had a couple.
Get out!
Yeah,
Get
I know.
out!
No, just we'd had kind of Essen and other bits and pieces, and like a couple of sort of weeks of solid gaming, and then just life got busy and a bit naff, and I was kind of a bit gamed out. And strangely, it's never really happened before, but my shelf of shame was starting to almost cause me anxiety. Like the number of games that were unplayed that I really wanted to get to, but just knew I wouldn't get to, was really causing me a bit of like, oh, it's like a different, like not anxiety or anything like that, but just felt odd. I don't know how to
Shame!
Yeah.
Shame!
I just couldn't put it into words, so I've kind of had a little bit of a sort of a 3-week hiatus. I've played a couple of games, but I haven't, like the games I've played plenty of time, and I think I've spoken about them plenty of times before. So I've been just kind of doing other things, been designing inserts and doing the 3D insert thing, and I've been doing a bit of like Warhammer building miniatures and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, this is kind of a bit of a short segment on my part to sort of say that, I just haven't really got up to anything. My shelf of shame still looms in the corner. I'm not quite as freaked out about it as I was a couple of weeks ago. It just caught me a bit off guard. So
Do you know the solution for that?
don't buy games.
No. Buy the games. Let's start playing them.
It's fine. Previously, I'd do like, because I do nearly an all-day Sunday gaming session usually.
I'm only joking.
And then
it's
I do
fine.
2 games a week.
You
Like,
don't have to just.
I'm not gonna-
We play so many games.
I'm not going to get
It
you
is
onto the table.
completely fine.
So that's been my last few weeks. So I've quite enjoyed it, to be honest. I'm now sort of ready and raring
There
for
we
some
go.
more board gaming, so it's been quite nice to have that.
I think it's nice to have a little bit of time off every
Just sort
now
of
and then.
reset
Yeah,
the mechanism
definitely.
sort of thing, and reset your expectations and where you're at, and then sort of kick off again.
Yeah,
I think
especially if
I
you're
do
juggling
agree.
a lot of things as well.
Yeah,
Like another social life and work and family and everything else, and
All
it
of
kind
that
of
kind
get
of stuff.
overwhelming.
It's a
Yeah.
juggling act, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just trying to make time for it, and at the same time, sometimes it's nice to sort of distance yourself and then come back to it and go, oh, I remember this. This is great.
because normally I sort of push all that other stuff to one side, not work if they're listening, but I push all that other stuff to one side. My family's not listening, so I push all that and just sort of
Love you, Mum.
Under the rug. Under the rug.
give gaming a bit more of a sort of a centre spot in my life, whereas every now and again you kind of got to go, oh, go on then, I really should sort of pay attention to the other parts of it, and give that centre stage. But there we go, that's me. Not exciting, but I think needed and always worth talking about, because I think
Absolutely.
sometimes when you look online and stuff like that, you think, blimey, I'm not getting through as many games as other people and all that kind of stuff. And
My,
it's
my
just,
shelf of shame is always large. I just never get a chance to get it, but I get it. You know, sometimes it's like, I want to get this to the table, but it's time and also learning it, and then joy. But then I always love that game over there. That's lovely and cute and cuddly, and it's my favourite. So I want to go to that more.
I just don't understand how your shelf of shame can be so large when you're the one who picks the games.
I know
For your gaming
for my
group.
gaming group,
And you don't let
still,
anyone else choose them. You're the only one that picks.
No, that's just
and
it.
you've still got a shelf of shame.
This is because I know what I like.
And it's also because of your nickname.
If I go to New Hotness, sometimes go to New Hotness, but then I go like to old and cute and cuddly and lovely and furry in my safe place.
is that what you're calling Brass Birmingham? It's
Absolutely.
cute and cuddly?
Just checking. I do love Brass Birmingham and Lancashire very much. Davey, what have you been up to?
So I played a game from Game Brewer. Mark has got a copy of Trolls and Princesses. Cute little. I say cute and little just because you just said cute and little, but it's a worker placement based on kind of Scandinavian folklore. So you have to choose the first player by who's got the biggest nose. So that
I wonder what you were going to say there.
So that was a bit of a like. Okay, this is a weird. Well, there's rules where you just end up
I
rolling
do
the
love
dice
obscure
anyway.
first.
That's just made me look around the room.
It has got the biggest
I'm normal
nose.
size
I'm
nose,
never
isn't it?
winning the nose
No,
contest.
you-
I've got a
No.
tiny
I
nose.
think
Probably Dan.
It's either me or Adrian. Maybe a little.
Mine
No,
just,
it's-
mine's
depends
just
if-
further off the face. I think that's the problem.
I was going to say, it depends if it's side profile or,
Yeah.
or dead flat on. I think flat on, Dan, you'll
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
And then if it's side, probably Adrian. But anyway,
I want to play this game now just so we can find out, once and for all, who it's going to be.
Whose nose?
Who's knows?
Make nose moulds and then find out the volumetric
Yes,
area of each
yeah,
nose.
right.
Just,
so the game is a worker placement. You have trolls, funnily enough, and you kind of have a deck of cards. And all the deck of cards really does is put resources out on the map. But it also kind of dictates there's an extra worker. It's an extra action point really, but which is the king troll. And basically, when you play that card, it also moves that around. You build out this cabin, you get resources on it, but you have like these actions which require a certain amount of trolls, and they slowly build up on your board, which gives you more action points to do more on your little action spaces. Then in the town, you can put out workers, and you get things like babies. You swap the troll for the baby, like they do in
get
the
babies?
folklore. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you get humans, and humans act as like dead action points, so you can fill those out.
This is all getting a bit macabre.
yeah.
This is a bit.
Baby
It's
swapping a dead human.
As in, they're not. As in, like dead action points. They stay where they are. They're not actually dead. You're paying them off when you get them. You have to pay X, Y.
Okay.
But in the towns, the kind of trolls stay there, and they add to the opponent's action points as well. So you've got to really think about the flow and where resources are. And it was a good game. Really enjoyed it. When you build the cabin now, you've got like tiles that have VP modifiers. You can also get other cards which give you benefits, etc., etc. Real fun little worker placement. I think 2-player, because the other people cancelled. 2-player was a bit. It didn't feel like there's much contention going on, and I had my town area, Marcus had his town area, and that was it.
Because the way you were describing it, I was like, that sounds like a very 2-player game if you're adding to someone else's pool and you're trying to do that thing. But if you're saying it's not 2-player...
Well, the way that happened, it may have been what cards we were playing as well as to where the resources went. But they both kind of was like, I've got my resources here, you've got yours there. We've ended up, when we filled up the towns, because you can basically put out permanent placements which add action points only for you. So that was what kind of dictated it. In the end, Marcus filled out all of his, and then I had a load over here. So we were just like, why would we go where we're getting less action points?
Makes sense.
So it did end up that way, whereas if obviously there's 4 players or 3 players even, there's going to be a bit more contention about which sector you're going to go to. So yeah, I'll play it again. There was like slight criticism about it, saying that it's like a one and done kind of game, but I could see a couple of plays, at least. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Nice.
And what about yourself, Dan?
I finally, after months and months and months of trying to get it to the table, finally got out the expansion for Anachrony, Fractures of Time. I love Anachrony. I've talked about it on the pod before, but it is up there, easily my top 3. For those who don't know, it's got a very strong time travel mechanic in it, where you're moving down a timeline by giving resources to your past self, but you happen to pay them back. Otherwise, you get anomalies in the time rift. And the Fractures of Time expansion adds another resource in it, which is called Flux. And basically, right when you're putting worker placement actions down on the main board, you can what's called blink them from one area to another, and essentially take actions again on the main board of the game. The game is it's meant to be shorter, isn't it? But Kerley, but it's not, is it? Because it's from 7 to 5 kind of game rounds, isn't it?
Well, that's it. The game rounds have been severely reduced, but the amount that you do on those game rounds has been more than doubled. So actually, it probably takes longer.
It takes longer,
but it's great fun.
It was very,
very it opens
fun.
up the board a lot more, doesn't it? Because people move around off of spaces, so that means you can then get that action again, and it definitely, for me, it's not as tight in what you can do.
I found that my strategy playing the base game. And then
you've got strategy playing.
Yeah, it's funny enough. There is a strategy there. I've nearly beaten you, but I think the strategy that I use for the base game, you can't use for Fractures. It's completely different, I think. It was nice to see, although I didn't play as the new faction, the new faction that comes out, it was nice to see them out as well. And the minis are gorgeous, and the components are lovely anyway. But I really, really enjoyed using that flux mechanic and kind of pushing your luck with it to try and get as much out of it.
Yeah, you did as well.
Oh, I did very much so. Yes,
rammed full of flux.
I was rammed full of the flux.
Yeah.
We did lots of flux capacitating. Is that a word?
Or you were at flux capacity.
Yes, I was very much at flux capacity.
Wasn't the flux capacitor the Back to the Future?
Back to the Future, yeah.
Okay. Yes. But yeah, I loved it. Fantastic. And I want to play it again. Like, I'm itching to play it again because it was that good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of my favourites, I have to say. Anachrony is probably my favourite game, and that's probably my favourite variant of it.
What about TM?
TM is close number 2.
Close number 2. But not number 1.
It was number 1, but Anachrony took over a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it is so good.
Yeah.
And I need to get to the table more because it is that good and crunchy and lovely. And
I think once you all know it, it's a bit shorter than TM as well, which kind of fits me.
Yeah, I think they're both quite similar length, aren't they? But
I would
the base game for Anachrony, I'd say the base game for Anachrony you can get done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But
when I've played it before, it's like a 2.5 to 3 hour game.
Yeah.
With that, I think it was just the learning side of it. I think with the flux, you probably get it out in about 3 hours.
Yeah. One day.
TM just takes a lot longer than you think. Really, with the expansions we play with, it takes 4 hours plus. Really,
I find with TM you don't think it's going to take that long, and then it just does. It doesn't feel like it does because it's a solid game.
Oh, a lovely game.
Yeah. Shall we move on, gentlemen?
Yeah.
So, folks, BoardGameGeek. Let's talk about BoardGameGeek.
Say that a bit quicker.
BoardGameGeek. Let's talk about BoardGameGeek. Because, I don't know about you, but it is like the Bible for our hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Once I discovered BoardGameGeek, I think it's like a constant tab that's kind of always open on my screen on any device that I have, as it is just the powerhouse of tools for our hobby. So I got a few points to go through that we can discuss about it. But first of all, what do you guys primarily use it for? Because it's so big and such a vast catalogue of information. There could be something that you use specifically for it, or generally. What do you use it for? Davey?
I have 3 main uses of BoardGameGeek. One, to justify to not buy a game usually, because I'm like, oh, well, it's not going to be a 7.5, is it? And you look at it, it's like, oh, no, it hasn't, so I'm not going to buy it. Because I like to talk myself out of buying games, because otherwise I would have bought a lot more games, and my shelf of shame wouldn't be a shelf of shame, it would probably be like a wall and a floor of shame.
Nice.
So that's one of the things I use it for, which might be counterproductive to people, but that's just me. 2, I use it for seeing the new hotness.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And then 3 is to clarify game rules. It's such a niche thing, some of these board games, and then trying to find rule interactions elsewhere, you're never going to find it. BoardGameGeek's the place to go if you want to find out.
I forgot about that. Actually,
rule interactions.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have this really strange like combo or interaction. You're like, I don't know how. Someone else must have done this, and then you look it up. And there's someone there, and then maybe even the designer's got on there as well. And you're like, okay, this has come from the designer. That's fine. This is how it's meant to be played.
Yeah.
But it's funny actually. 9 times out of 10, when you Google an issue with a board game, it comes up with a BoardGameGeek forum link.
Yeah, because where else
exactly.
does someone ask the question of how these two
So
rules
I
interact,
don't use BoardGameGeek for it, but that's where
where you end up.
Well, sometimes the search doesn't pick up, so sometimes it's good to just go on there for clarifications anyway. And then like when I played Nucleum the other day as well with the new expansion pack, Googled it, you can't find it anywhere, and it came with a little QR thing. Lost that, don't know where that is, so that's gone into the ether. But BoardGameGeek, there it was, just as a PDF.
Nice. Adrian, what about you?
So similar to Davey, I think it's really good for having like a living FAQ almost for the rulebook, because quite often they're first printings or whatever, and the questions have nearly always been asked before by someone else. So it's great. There's games that like were only released at Essen and nowhere else, and yet they've already got the questions on BoardGameGeek, and it's not really out for mass production, sort of like for retail yet. And yet people have already asked the question, the designers come back and answered them, because quite often the designers and the publishers are already on there.
It means no one can argue with you as well.
Yeah.
So these are the rules.
The designer said,
yeah,
this is exactly how it plays out. Sometimes it's not the designer, it's just kind of people coming together to work out a common consensus. But quite often it can be the designer answering a question.
Yeah.
Sleeve sizes. So
you took one of mine, Adrian.
So if you go on to BGG, they've actually just upgraded it recently. So there's now a card sleeve like clickable link, whereas before it was just at the very bottom there's a list. Clicked on that, everyone. Now there's actually like a tab on there that's 4 sleeve sizes. Nice. So that's quite an interesting upgrade that they've done. What a sleeve size?
Yeah, what's your favourite sleeve size?
Not brand of sleeve, size. It's obviously size. You know, it's important, right?
I do quite like a USA Chimera.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, thank you. That was a valid question.
I cannot answer that question because I haven't got a clue. Do you know? Do you have a favourite sleeve size?
I've not size.
And then I think the third point is if there's a designer whose game I've not played before and I kind of want to see what other work they've got out there or something like that, I'll quite often use BoardGameGeek to sort of research that designer or understand kind of if there's a regular mechanism they use or something like that. And it's really handy because it's just a giant database. So you kind of can pull that information out of the system quite quickly. So yeah, that's kind of the third thing I suppose I use BGG.
It sends you down the rabbit hole, can't it? Because you click on a designer, it's they've done this, and then you before you know it, you've got 5 games just turned up at your doorstep.
Not quite like that for me, but yeah. It is great for sort of having a look and seeing what else is out there that you might not have seen in the hotness sort of thing. It might be a bit of a they did that 5 years ago and hadn't heard about it. It's quite good for that.
Kerley, what do you use it for?
Well, various things. I agree with everything you guys have said. Definitely card sleeves. I've done that on many occasions. That's really helpful, and I am a sleever. I'm given to one. I assumed everyone was, but apparently it's not a thing.
It depends on the game for me.
There's a lot of people who are quite militant anti-sleevers.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
like
definitely
faction,
not. It depends on how much a card is being handled. It's how I would.
Yeah,
my TM
card
is really just it's starting to fall apart.
See, you're handling those a lot, so I do understand it. Whereas if it's an event card that comes out like round the board, like you're hardly ever going to touch those. So
I must admit, I went off sleeving when I tried to. Well, I did successfully sleeve my entire Twilight Imperium with the expansion. I think it was about 600.
Yeah.
It was like you don't really think about it, but all the planets, all the event cards, all of the oh my god, I was like, oh my life, and then I sold it. So yeah, there we are.
You would have got more for it because it was sleeved.
Yeah, this is it. So yeah, I use it for that. I also use it to do a lot of research, exactly as Adrian says. You know, if I like a designer, I'll go down that rabbit hole very often. The other thing I wanted to mention, I don't do so much of this, but keeping in mind the marketplace is massively used on there as well for people who want games, people selling games, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's mostly not regulated, so you've got to be a little bit careful on there, from what I understand. But functions a little bit like Facebook Marketplace kind of thing, where but lots of people put their libraries or their whole board game library up there, and then say these are the ones I want to get rid of, and other people that are searching for them, it kind of brings them together,
I find that some people don't update the listings quick enough.
Quite often, you'll message them, I sold that 3 years ago.
It's like, thanks.
But they do, is it the maths exchange or the maths swap? I can't think what they call it, but that's quite often through BoardGameGeek, where everyone kind of puts in what they want and what they've got, and then it's like, right, you send, person A sends to person B something, and person B sends like one thing.
This is starting to sound like communism, Adrian.
Person D. And then hopefully you get something that you like out of it, and you've given something away.
Yeah, so I use it for that, definitely. The other thing that I haven't used in a little while, I have to confess, but when I went to the Taunton board gaming group, kind of at the same time that I started here, they organised it on BoardGameGeek.
Yeah.
So there's like a guild on there that they used. And alright, it was fairly... I prefer the event system that we use, but theirs was more of a, this is what's happening this day, this is who's coming, this is any updates, and, they could post new threads and stuff like that. So that was pretty good. That was pretty useful.
Yeah. It has come a long way when you think about when I first started using it, and the UI was all over the place. It was pretty much just like a glorified spreadsheet.
It's like a forum.
Yeah, it was.
Forum,
yeah. And there's still things that could be better, but they've come a long way.
There's definitely, was it? I want to say it was about 4 years ago. I think it was just before lockdown, wasn't it? Or was it just after lockdown?
They changed the logo.
They kind of
did all the updates.
They did like a massive, like UI update, because before that it just felt like it was just where they were building stuff on top of sort of crumbling foundations almost, whereas now it actually feels a bit more user friendly.
Put a patch on it rather than
rather than actually rebuild it.
But going back to what else I use, I do also use it for ratings. I know that it's not necessarily a good thing to do, but I can't help myself doing it. In the fact of, I don't think I'd ever buy a game that was under 7. And I know that to be a fact, and I don't really, But I mean, how much, considering that you can ratings bomb things, and I don't know how much credence put in it, but it's such a quick and easy resource to get a really feel for how well a game is regarded, that I do find it quite useful. The only other thing I use it for, last thing, is if I can't find a review or it's a smaller game, going onto the website for the going onto BGG for the actual game itself, they normally have a how to play on the bottom. So I found that quite useful.
So things I use it for are definitely, obviously, for research, as you guys have said, and I'll use it for a lot of rulebook hunting. That's where I go for when I find a rulebook. Just go there straight away. I mean, a lot of people will just Google it, but I tend to go to BGG because I think that's where I'm going to find the most up-to-date. I know that, talking about Anachrony again, I know that there was a time a while back, I'm not sure if it is now, but there was a time before they brought out the Essential Edition where if you Googled the main rulebook, that it would bring up an old version. And it's like, I'm reading it, I'm like, well, this doesn't sound quite right to me. They must have made changes here. And then I discovered that on BGG was the actual proper one. So I find that Googling sometimes doesn't necessarily help. It's better now than it used to be, but back along it, I found it difficult. But obviously, looking at the new Hotness is something that I do, like you do, Davey, having a look at what's around and what's about. But also, it's quite a good place to look at UK events. So a lot of people list UK events on BGG, or worldwide events on BGG, to find different conventions, different things going on for board gaming, and that's a good place to as a directory to find different events that are going on throughout the year.
There you go.
Which is very, very good. Question for you all. So, have you ever picked up a board game in a shop, looked at the box, and then the next thing you do is to go on BoardGameGeek?
It's what I always do.
It's what you always do, right?
Yeah.
So, would you do that every time? And can you name a game that you know that you've done it with, and because of what you've seen on BoardGameGeek, it has swayed you to buy the game, or not?
Yeah, I've got 2 examples.
Do it.
So Takanoku and Bear Park. I was looking for a game for me and Gemma to play. Looked to the BoardGameGeek just to see what's going to work better for 2-player. I ended up with Bear Park because I think it's better kind of puzzle. You're doing your own thing in a
great
lot of
two-player.
sense, but it's nice. It's a nice 2-player game, so that's what swayed it for me as well. Because I mean, ratings-wise, I don't think they're that far off each other. It's like 0.1 or something. So, but it was just basically this is better at 2-player, and that helps.
It does. Yeah.
That's actually a good point. Just on a side note of the previous subject, I very often use it for ideal player counts
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Very much so. Same.
and
Same.
game run times.
Because
Yeah,
the
I
boxes
use it for
lie.
that. Box-
We all know
Boxes
the
lie.
box
The
game
box.
time is for playtesters that have played the game a lot, and then they're all sitting around and playing that game. And I think somehow, rather than being like, oh, we're going to add some time on because it's definitely not the right time, it just always seems to come out at the lower end. So, it doesn't
I
take
think Fractures of Time says like 30 minutes per player.
Yes, I
I said,
right.
no, they definitely
Not these
lie.
players.
No, definitely.
That's what I mean. If you're playing with a lot of people who have played it a lot, then that's probably is the time.
Yeah,
But
but
maybe even quicker.
I guess people like us don't often play a game a lot or enough to match that.
And that's
that
fine.
game time.
I think a lot
There's
of
too
people
many
as
games to
well
play.
assume that the runtime is going to be the first time you play it. That will
Yeah.
be the runtime
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
Yeah.
which I think is just a general thing in board game that just doesn't happen when
They,
you
they
first play a
should
board
put on
game.
there the first game time. That's what it should be. It's for how long for your first game per player.
But they probably put them on
Yeah.
the sales. So they wouldn't do
Honesty, I want
You know what?
transparency.
I'll put that
in the
back.
industry.
TI 12 hours. Yeah, let's see if people grab that.
it. Yeah. I don't think they,
Generously for your first game.
Yeah.
I think they deliberately don't put the game time on
Yeah.
TI's box so they know.
Yeah.
You already know this is going to take forever. Adrian.
Yeah, I don't often use BoardGameGeek as like a first line of checking stuff. Say if there's a designer that I've sort of found, I will look elsewhere. I will look in BGG for that like further information, but quite often I will look for a podcast or a YouTube channel or something like that, because when you look at, especially when you're looking at scores, they're human inputs, right? So you get review bombing and like people then doing the opposite where they're trying to push it up their favourite.
Yeah, I was going to mention that one, talk about the
the
hotness and
stuff.
talk about top 100.
And then I've seen 6 out of 10, fantastic game, would recommend to anyone, and I was like, as a 6 out of 10? Like,
But this is why reading the reviews also helps as well. Like if you want to I do like going down and reading the reviews because that also helps dictate what kind of consensus you're getting off of people.
that
when-
person has taken the time to
Yeah.
have a lengthy
And-
review. Then
Darkest Dungeon, great example. They kind of screwed everyone over with the shipping. It wasn't necessarily their fault. It was just poor business sense, I think. But everyone seemed to take, a lot of people seem to take that as a slight instead.
Yeah.
And the fact that rather than it being poor businessmanship, it's actually money grabbing.
yeah,
Whereas no, the costs went up.
yeah, and
And
yeah,
they
just,
would
just
have
go
lost
on
a lot of money.
1 out of 10.
They didn't deal with it very well. Rather than being like, send if you can't afford it, we'll refund you all of this. It was just like, no, you have to pay it. So I think that's where they kind of slipped up. But people just started review bombing them,
Yeah,
I really don't see
and the
that.
game hadn't really been played yet. And then
Yeah.
other people then trying to bomb it back the other way, and it's like, well, hold up here.
Well, that just
Let's
screws with the review
leave this
system,
out.
doesn't
This,
it?
what you
really
need.
helpful.
Yeah, exactly. What you need is just another chat section for people who want to then show
Yeah,
discrepancies rather than a review section. But people would never.
people
use
wouldn't
it anyway.
use it. People
Yeah.
just to continue to review bomb, and I think for me that's quite often the reason why I don't use BGG for the new hotness, is because there's that. And then also, if you go to look at now weight is all over the place at the best of times. But if you ever go to look at weight on a new game, it is normally a lot lower than what it ends up being. And my theory on this is because, let's say, a new Mind Clash, because we've spoken about them a few times, comes out. Everyone who loves Mind Clash races out, goes to Essen or UK Games Expo, or finds prototype copies. Great, on there, right? Yeah, it's about the same as normal, medium or something like that. And they'll press medium weight or a lower weight. And then there's more people who aren't au fait with it, like start and play it. They'll click heavy.
How higher?
And so that tends to slowly creep up. I did get a few examples, but I think Nucleum has shifted 0.3 weight upwards in the space of a month and a half.
Yeah.
So yeah, people who are used to playing that level of game will go out there, they'll rate it, they might rate it as a medium or a 3.5 or something like that, whereas in fact I think
Sits more
average
four.
average gamer that I don't believe exists, but let's call them average gamer, might go out there and go, this is more like a medium heavy or a heavyweight game, 4.5, and then it slowly over time creeps up. I've seen it with quite a few games, especially the heavyweight games.
I've got a theory with this as well. Whereas there's also, if you look at expansions, they're always rated higher.
Yeah.
And it's because the only people that have bought the expansion
Yeah,
for the
people who
game
like the
are the
original
people
one.
that enjoy the game.
Yeah, 100%.
So then that also works in the same
Yeah.
way. So that you can get very
But
skewed
wouldn't
data.
you naturally think that the game would be slightly more weightier with an expansion with it?
Oh, I'm talking about review-wise as well.
Or review, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry,
Yeah.
I did flip it, but I just meant it runs along the same tangent as...
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of... I agree with you to an extent, but I always feel like kind of as long as there's not been review bombing, which admittedly doesn't happen incredibly often, I do think.
No.
As long as there hasn't been review bombing, I think the masses kind of give you a general leveling out of that kind of thing. Whereas if you go and listen to a YouTube video or a podcast or whatever,
One
they've
guy's
got
opinion.
inbuilt bias, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that might be bias that you agree with. It might be that they've got a heavy games bias. Not anything malicious, maybe, but they've got a bias in certain directions. You know which way it is. You know, I know people who... I mean, I don't know this for an absolute fact, actually, but I'm pretty sure there are some channels that live off giving negative reviews and really tearing stuff apart for the big headline, you know? Yeah, so
But
I don't know if I trust them
it's
either.
not-
And it takes a lot longer to get to an opinion, whereas I'd be more inclined maybe to do how you play or something. I don't know.
yeah, which is how I would look at something to gain an understanding of it. But if you're, let's say you're newish into the hobby, and you're hearing all about Nucleum as an example, it's not out of retail yet, you want to get a feel for it. If you went and had a look at the weight and went, the weight is about the same as whatever other
Bottom
game,
over.
yeah, and then it turns out to be heavier,
Turns out to be Nucleum.
yeah, you know, then that's quite misleading. So and it's because it's a user generated system, you will always have this problem. There's pretty much no way to get around it that I can see without paying
But it
someone
gets
a lot
more
of money.
accurate with time, though.
Exactly, but if you're using it from a hotness perspective,
Yeah.
you know, and especially if you're new in the hobby and you don't understand maybe, or you haven't seen these caveats and sort of nuances appearing in the system, you might take it as read as, I'll put in everything from 3 to 3.5 that's in the top 100 and go from there. Well, I think it was like 3.8 or something like that when it first, no, 3.6 I think when it first came out. Let's say you put 3 to 3.6 and Nucleum is in there in like the hotness, and I'll run out and pay 70 quid for that, and then you spend like 2 hours reading a rule book and don't know, ask from your elbow when you've finished with it. That's quite misleading, and that's, I think that's, BGG does a lot really well, but I do think that's one of the things is because it's so user generated, it could be quite tough to.
They actually need
To
probably a developer to
understand.
put a recommended weight to start with because they've played X amount, and then people then vote whether they should go up and down instead.
I'm going to pay someone a lot of money to do that with every game that comes out and all that. It's just,
Well, the
it's
developer
just
can just
tough.
put it in with their. It's in their best interest as well, though, isn't it? Surely.
Potentially, but that's the same as playtime, isn't it? If I say
Yeah,
playtime's
true.
going to be 2
Yeah.
hours and I tell you it's going to be
What you could do is some places like some review systems, I think Steam do it, where you have to have so many before it will accept and publish the results.
Yeah.
Which I think would be quite a good thing, because then at least you've got a good rounded number. Hopefully,
Yeah.
you should have a decent average score then.
It does feel like there's like two camps though, isn't it, with these kind of things, where basically you either go onto YouTube and find someone who has a similar opinion to
Who you
yourself with a lot
respect,
of games, and you follow them, or you kind of go with the mean average and try and hopefully get the right game from that.
I think I pay more attention to like the weight ratings and videos that people have done rather than the actual.
It must be hard when you hate so much to keep a tab on what you want.
No, because you can sort by one rating.
Yeah, exactly. 1 to 5, 90% of gaming. 5 to 10.
Lovely, mate. But yeah, so I can give you an example of mine. It was actually at the UK Games Expo. And this is not knocking this game, by the way. It's
I think I
very
know what
highly
game you're going to
regarded.
say.
Okay,
Oh.
go for it.
No, you tell me first. What's your right?
No, come on. Play
Are you
this
going
game.
to talk about Books of Time?
No. So,
Kerley
anyway.
didn't play it.
No, I
So
didn't
anyway,
play
books
Did
of
you not
time.
play it? I thought you were going to talk about that.
it. No. Beast.
Okay, yeah.
Beast. Now, it wasn't anything to do with the score rating, but I looked at it in Zatu and I thought, oh, this is, popular, everyone's talking about it. And I thought I'd have a little look, and I had a look at the back, looked interesting. obviously the name appeals. And then I went onto BGG, checked it out, and kind of first things I got out of it is the fact it was a hidden movement cooperative game. I've already got one.
Yeah.
Fine. I don't need another one in that genre.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I've got Fury of Dracula, which I absolutely love, but do you need Beast and Fury of Dracula?
Yeah.
I've played both now. Really enjoyed Beast. I definitely wouldn't buy it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was a good decision.
Yeah.
So, that's the other kind of thing that I use it for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's multifaceted rather than being just the score in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, definitely.
I do take in a lot of other things as well as, like, if someone brought a game out and was like, oh, we're playing this game, I wouldn't then get my phone out and look up and BoardGameGeek and go, oh, it's only a 6, mate, catch you later.
No, that's very true.
I would play it and then make my own opinion.
Yeah,
and then I'd be like, oh, I don't agree with what people say online. But when there's such a saturated market as there is with board gaming, having something that we can kind of anchor to and make our decision off of is really helpful.
So, have you ever used BGG for a specific need? So, you touched base on it a minute ago with regards to using it for a specific purpose, which was something that I now can't remember.
Sleeve sizes.
That was it. Sleeve sizes. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
So, other than that, is there anything else? Like, is there any specific need that you use it for? So, I had, I think it was a couple of Halloweens ago, I needed to get some more kind of Halloween-esque games in. So, BGG came to the rescue for not only player count, but also for theme games of Halloween-based games, and that's what I used it for.
How about Christmas quiz questions?
Christmas quiz questions.
Yeah.
Are you referring to
Say that
last
3
year's?
times fast.
I can't because I speak fast naturally. Did you use it last year for
Yes.
the quiz?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for that.
And we'll probably be using it again this year.
This
for the
year,
quiz.
yes. Coming soon, hint, hint. Like, Davey, any specific use that you can think of that might be unique to anybody else?
That's a strange one. It's a curveball. So, unique to anyone else. I don't think there's going to be anything unique because everyone's put that there for a reason. But I have used it to find some alternative rules for some games, maybe sometimes, to see if people have... Just to see what other people have
homebrew
put out.
stuff.
Yeah, but I've never actually really played it with their home rulings. I've just been more intrigued about what other people have thought of mechanic-wise and what they've brought to the table. So I've used it for that.
Well, sometimes that can lead to an official expansion.
I do like reading amateur reviews on there as well. You get a different sense of opinion from someone who's kind of more of an average gamer or average board gamer. And I just find it quite interesting. I mean, this is kind of what got me into doing the podcasting anyway, is the same thing.
I think the only thing I've used it for recently is fan-made maps.
That's
You
good.
kind of reminded me, but with the Terraforming Mars, that was where I got my initial idea to use the fan-made ones that I got done in, God, what was the material you call it? Neoprene, thank you. Neoprene. And what's good about it is they got their own, I was going to call them a PDS there. Hi, Jay. A PDF of all the rules, editions and stuff like that they've got.
Did you order them through BGG?
So, no, but they were from the BGG forum that the Board Game Trade and Chat got them from, and they did a mass order.
Nice. Yeah.
But actually, it's a lot of some of the maps that are with the new Prelude 2 Kickstarter that I funded has got the official versions of some of those maps. Which
it's nice that they've taken those on then as well.
Which I've then bought. So
yeah.
It's the same as the Batman Gotham Chronicles. During lockdown, I used a fan-made solo mode that became the official solo mode that they introduced in Season 3. Yeah. So it is quite a place for people to kind of test their metal, I think, with a bit of designing.
I think
it's like free labour, isn't it? It's great.
Well.
Yeah,
I think Tapestry, one of the Tapestry expansions ended up being from a fan-made expansion. Essentially, well, I think it was with help with the arts track. The arts track was added was helped by a fan, I believe. I may be wrong on that, but I think that was right. That I read up on that. It's a shame they're not making any more Tapestry. Make some more Tapestry.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to accept you're going to have, the odd bit that you're like, how the hell do they come up with that kind of thing, Or I don't really think that's balanced or whatever, but as long as you're happy with that level of, I think with a game that you're very familiar with, you just want a bit of variation. They're absolutely...
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Variety is the spice of life, so
Indeed.
they say.
Yeah.
So the board game Hotness. I'm sure we all know what the Board Game Hotness is. For those who don't know, it is a list that gets updated periodically, well, pretty much live, doesn't it? As kind of new games are created and more buzz is created about them, then this kind of list is generated, and the more a game is spoken about, then the higher it appears on the list. Is this something that we are all kind of looking at religiously? I mean, is it a daily thing? It used to be a daily thing for me. I know that used to be. I used to look at it religiously all the time. But now, is that something that you're familiar
I'll enter
with?
this discussion and just say not at all. Ever.
Not at all.
Never. So there we go. I'm done.
I used to get excited about it. Now I think I was like you towards the start. You would constantly go on there. Oh, what's new? What's new? What can I get my hands on? It's evolved into a thing that's just a bit of excitement now and again. Just go, oh, what's the new hotness? And go and have a look and kind of peek behind the curtain and go, oh, yeah, that's cool. That's up there. Oh, I've played that one. Oh, I've played this one. And I just use it more of kind of light entertainment now.
Yeah. Light entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall I watch this program? Like, no, I'll be on the BGG Hotness list.
Well, that's killed 2 minutes. Yeah, there we go.
I find that when I was into the hobby at the start, that I used to see it and look at it every day, and
got a nice rush at the start.
Yeah, very much so. It's like, oh, it's colder than new. I was very colder than new.
Expected someone waving money, going no, as it's like a horse race going up. Yeah,
I was all over it, and I was like, oh, that game's amazing. That looks amazing. Oh, let's get that, and I'd be very, very colder than new. While my own kind of personal kind of financial circumstances have changed, I can't afford to do that anymore, so I don't tend to do that, and I kind of stay off it, because if I stay off the hotness list, then I'm not going to be tempted.
Yeah.
But I still kind of keep my ear to the ground, you know, not necessarily from BGG, but from others who go, oh, this game out at the moment, and this is quite cool, and it could well be on the top 100 or the top of the hotness list.
Yeah.
Adrian.
I think like Kerley, I don't really use it anymore. I think it's a bit of a trap in some respects, because anything can put it to the top of the hotness. Like, it could be bad things like print issues and stuff like that, and just everyone going on the forums to ask, was I supposed to have 12 of these or 15 of these like the rulebook says? And suddenly, if enough people have spoken about it in the forum...
Is that how the algorithm works? Is it rating, or is it heavy, or is it clicking on it, or searching for it?
I don't know exactly, but I do know that, like, I think it was Wingspan reshot to the top of the list when it was out of print, and people were really annoyed of how long it was out of print for.
Wow.
And it shot to the top of the list then, and there was another one. I want to say it was Monster Apocalypse, but it might have been. It was another sort of Kickstarter that might never get delivered sort of deal, where it shot to the top of the hotness because suddenly everyone was on there like review bombing it and searching
Metal Gear
it.
Solid game was like that as well.
That
appeared to the top.
I don't remember that. I suppose, I just don't really use it for anything anymore, because I think it is, if you're a reviewer or you are the publisher or developer of a game or something like that, it's great for you to get a picture of what is being talked about a little bit more. But as a consumer, I find it a bit of a trap. Quite often I find it funny to see what fell off within a week, shot straight to like number 1 or number 2. Yeah. And then before the Kickstarter has even ended or whatever, it's suddenly off the top of the hotness. And I think to myself, well, that's probably not going to be the hit that top of the hotness section suggests it would be.
Yeah.
Because if it's shot back down the hotness that quickly, it's like a real flash in a pan sort of thing.
Kind of a pattern with that and the way that the campaign's kind of gone.
But I think that's just my pessimistic brain at work finding...
Do you sit there and go...
Yeah, I do cackle.
I knew it!
My Anachrony laugh!
Sit there in a chair I can turn around in occasionally, just
next door neighbour's cat's like trying to get away.
You've got no hair, so you're halfway
It's
there.
true.
Yeah.
Not Dr. Evil.
$1 million.
Yes, Mr. Bigglesworth.
But
a packet of shh.
We shall call it Preparation H.
Yeah.
Wow.
The BGG Top 100. Now, I imagine that in comparison to the hotness, that people are more kind of in tune, perhaps, with that list, or not.
I do use that list a little bit, but more a bit of I haven't played that game yet. That might be worth having a look at, you know. So that I've looked through it before with that kind of head on.
Yeah.
It's what got me into... Ian would kill me, but I'm going to call it Crokinole, but Ian like Crokinole or something like that. But yeah, so Crokinole, that's what got me into that. It's saw it on the list. Went, what the hell is that? on the
Same.
list?
I did the same thing. Yeah.
You know, and there's quite a few on there that I have yet to play that I'm like, I really should get around to doing that. It's a bit like, I treat it the same now I'm into the hobby as kind of like the top 100 films you must see before you die sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Just trying to tick them off just to see what everyone's talking about. There are some games I'd probably skip, like any legacy games or any campaign games, things like that. But one-off plays, I think
Not
is always a good
legacy
idea
games.
to...
How much
No,
weight
no,
do you...
I love legacy games, but it's just... It's one of those that I think you need to do a bit more research because it's more of an event, more of a long-term kind of thing. You know?
Yeah.
Rather than just a one and done.
Yeah.
How correct or how much weight do you put behind the top 100?
I don't massively because it's all to do with mass appeal, which doesn't always mean my appeal. Is one of the big parts, and also things that are new sometimes take a little bit of time to get on there.
Yeah.
So not massively. It's more of a bit of a historical kind of nudge. Oh, this is popular. Overall.
What's stood the test of time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. That's exactly
absolutely.
what I mean. Yeah. So there's got to be something in it. If it's in the top 100 of board games ever, of which on the BGG I've seen ones in the sort of high four figures. Ranking wise, so if you've made it into the top 100, it's got to be a testament to something.
Yeah, where is June now?
June's made it to the top 100,
Imperium.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fifth or sixth.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
it's way
that's
above
it.
Yeah, I
the
know,
top
but-
100.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that's quite a recent game.
Yeah.
Ark Nova did it.
Yeah,
Ark Nova
for
did it.
sure.
Well, it's
Ark
not.
Nova, yeah.
It's not unusual for
it's seventh.
games to. It's not unusual for games to. Oh, it's seventh.
And Ark Nova's
Ark
fourth.
Nova's
Yeah.
fourth, that's what I was
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not unusual. It's like Gloomhaven slowly falling down because I'm sure Frosthaven will slowly rise to the surface.
I don't
they'll
think it
find a
has
mid-
though.
I think it'll find more. I think because of the way that the ranking works over time, when this is getting less reviews, that's Gloomhaven I'm pointing at. When Gloomhaven gets less reviews, it will slowly slip down, and Frosthaven will get more reviews, and it will slowly go
I
up.
don't think it will. Frosthaven's got load more admin, and I actually think that's
Yeah.
its biggest downside. Is the
I got to be
loads more
honest,
admin.
I'd much rather play Gloomhaven than Frosthaven.
Yeah, I
play
think
both?
I'm the same.
Since
You play
release
both?
since
Yeah.
the release of Frosthaven, Gloomhaven's gone down,
Yeah, they're going to do Gloomhaven 2.0 soon, aren't they?
They
They've
are.
announced
No.
that.
and that
Probably.
is a big problem. I think in the top 100 there are 4 multiples, if I remember correctly, games that have appeared on 2 printings or a rework.
Really?
And both of those games have ended up. It's certainly in the top 200-300. There's quite a few of them.
Wow. Didn't know
where
that.
you've got multiples of the same game,
Yeah.
just printed at different times
Yeah.
or whatever, that end up like repeatedly in the top 100. And so that kind of does sort of skew the fact that the top 100 is really the top 96 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just having a look at the top 20. I think the only game that I haven't played on the top 20, if you don't include the legacy game, is actually the Castles of Burgundy.
Have you played Twilight Struggle?
Yeah, got it.
Oh, blimey.
Have you?
That's
I've
what I
never
need
played it. It was number 1 for years.
Well, I don't know whether I should say this on the pod, but I don't really care anyway. But it was the first and only game that I got accidental pirated.
Oh, nice.
So I ordered it.
Oh, you
off,
remember saying? Yeah.
God, I think it was Amazon, which I've learned from and never ordered from
Yeah,
Amazon
I
again.
never ordered from Amazon.
But yeah,
For
I
that
mean, it's
reason.
a very good copy, to be fair, but it's probably better than the original. But yeah, the pirated.
Yeah, there you go. Great Western Trail is number 30.
So that
And number
yes,
15.
15. I
Yeah.
didn't see that.
And
Yeah.
that, I think it used to be around number 12, and that's now slowly fallen down,
And then
and
the
second
other one will
edition is now
rise.
coming in.
Coming
So you
in.
do get this sort of weird shift as new
Yeah.
editions come out, and people learn to rate the new edition over the old
That's
one. and
interesting.
stuff. Sometimes it doesn't happen though. So Castles of Burgundy is 16, but there's been 2 editions since that's come out,
Yeah.
and it hasn't really fallen because a lot of people just seem to vote for the original
For the
one.
original one.
No, you
rather
would,
than the
wouldn't
new
you?
one.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
wonder
I
whether
would
it's
do.
deliberate on their part, whether they actually don't want to amalgamate them into one, because there are going to be some games that don't do a very good job of their own game, right?
Yeah.
Looking at that list, I've not looked at the 100 list for a little while, but I didn't realise that Gloomhaven has now dipped to 3rd. But I remember the hoo-ha between Brass Birmingham and Gloomhaven when Brass Birmingham took over Gloomhaven, and the uproar that it caused from both sides of this battlefield
Yeah.
of people then review bombing the other one
Yeah.
because Brass had taken over, so they just review bomb it,
Yeah.
which I thought was just completely bizarre. But I also find
It's like the Peaky Blinders, wasn't it?
it was a bit like Flat Caps at Dawn, wasn't it? But I'm a little bit surprised that Brass Birmingham is still there at number 1. Don't get me wrong, I think the game's fantastic. but I am surprised that it's at number 1.
I think it's for a game that's got a load of crunch. It's actually quite accessible, and I think that really helps for a Euro.
I mean, the top 50, the average game weight, and again, I've got problems with the weight mechanic, but if you look at it, if you just kind of use it as a bit of a barometer, the top 50 is 3.5 weight, which is kind of that upper end of mid-weight.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it's less so now, but BGG used to be really heavyweight. Like, the top games were all like through the Ages is still here somewhere.
Well, Pandemic's at number 2. What's Pandemic?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying there's not, but it tends to sit like heavier. And even Pandemic Legacy is definitely heavier than basic Pandemic.
Yeah.
It's just it's a legacy experience that's probably one of the best legacy experiences, in my opinion, that there is. So,
Sure.
but it does tend to sit at 3.5, like for that top 50.
Yeah.
And that's with Crokinole in there at 1.2, dragging like a big portion of that weighting down.
It's got 1.2. It's a flicking game.
I'm sure it's 1.2.
Well, it's not terribly complicated.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Is it in the top 100?
You think it'd be like a
It's number
0.5?
50,
Yeah.
I think.
But I think one's the lowest.
50. There you go.
Oh, one's the lowest, is it?
I believe so.
There it is.
1.23. There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's 2.3 over. 0.23 over. Should be sitting at 1.
So I think that the top 50 and to a lesser extent the top 100 runs on the slightly heavier side. So again, I used to sort of say, I'll have a look at BGG, like the top 100, what you look at. I don't say that to people who ask about, who are new into the hobby anymore, because it runs so heavy that I think, if you looked at that and you went, let's play Brass Birmingham, that's number 1, I'd probably scare you away. Not everyone would, but I think a lot of people getting into the hobby, taking their first steps, would run away at Brass Birmingham.
I think you're better off. Whenever I've had someone ask a similar question, I was like, well, what kind of things do you like? And just trying to drill down on what I think they would like and putting them in one of the more accessible games out there of that type. You know?
It depends on time again, doesn't it? If you're having a very quick conversation with someone, you can go, have a quick look at BGG. If you're having a more nuanced conversation, then yes, you can sort of, what do you like? What have you enjoyed? What have you played so far? But yeah, I used to just say, I'll have a look at BGG, and now I sort of say I'll have a look at like IGN or something like that have started publishing like the top 20 games to start with.
Yeah. Shall we go on to the next segment?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, gentlemen, here we go. Would you rather own every game in the BGG Top 100 in its current state and no other game ever again, or remove every game from your collection that's in the BGG Top 100, but you're given every new release to yourself free of charge afterwards?
100% the second one.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, easy.
So you would get rid of TM?
Yeah.
You'd get rid of them all?
Yeah, but he doesn't have to get rid of Ares Expedition or the dice version because they're not in the top 100.
Very true.
But even if they were, I'm always going to be more of a fan of the future is there.
The
open
cult
and
of the new.
waiting.
Yeah.
No, not even the cult of the new. The cult of the ever hopeful.
Ooh.
Anachrony was a new game at one time.
It was. I bought that completely on a
Yeah,
whim.
Anachrony's
Voidfall
on there,
came out
you know
this
that.
year. Yeah, I know, but all of them were on there. But the point of most of my favourite games, you can guarantee are going to be in the top 100.
Yeah.
But I have hope for the future.
Ooh, I like that. Because I bought an Anachrony on a whim. Literally saw the box. Didn't Google it. Didn't BGG it. Nothing.
Yeah.
Bought it on a whim. So soon I went,
Yeah,
amazing.
maybe. Well, it's just, I suppose I've always had this from books in the fact of I don't think, and with music, I don't think I've listened to my favourite song yet. That sort of thing, So I'm much more.
That's very philosophical.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I'll probably die soon, so I'll go for the first one.
That's also philosophical. Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You go for the first one.
Yeah, why not?
Well, what have you got in that 100?
I don't know.
that
I
you
can still
wouldn't
play
wanna-
the other games, right? I don't have to just buy them.
Oh, he's gone for the
Ooh.
technicality.
It's for a technicality drop.
Hey, look, if we're going on technicalities, I'll go with that first one. If I'm, allowed to play them. I'm still allowed to play them.
No technicalities.
Yeah, fine.
You can't play any of the others.
I haven't said first one just because there's so many good games on there. Why not?
So what would you want? What would you never want to get rid of? It was in the top 100.
Well, there's Gaia Project, Dune Imperium, Arc Nova, Brass Birmingham, Great Western Trail.
God, there's so many good ones.
Yeah, Anachrony. Then you've got a load of. I think it's got a load of Lacerdas on there as well. On Mars.
On Mars,
Your
definitely.
favourite.
I don't think Weather Machine's made it on there. Yeah,
No,
that's
'cause
one of
it's
my
not loved.
favourites. I really like
The
Weapon
most
Machine.
hated. It's the most low-rated Lacerda.
No, I love
Why?
Weapon Machine as well.
I think it's. This is again really off tangent, but I think it's because it's an abstract theme. Because I think the mechanics are strong and as strong as a lot of the other Lacerdas, but I think because it's a weird theme and because it's quite hard to teach as a theme, it doesn't have a natural flow like, for instance, Kanban or Vinhos and stuff like that. It has a much more natural, this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Where the machine is not, it's like, well, you're trying to fix the wind and the rain, and it just doesn't quite.
And then it makes more wind and rain.
Yeah,
and then
so I think
there
it's.
is. I do
But
understand.
yeah,
that.
it's the one with the highest number of
Doesn't
low
make
ratings.
pragmatic
out of
sense as to why
Yeah.
you're doing this,
Yeah.
but the mechanics are the most fun for me.
Interesting.
There we
Interesting.
But
go.
there we are.
Adrian.
Definitely the second one, and my technicality is because I can own a different edition of it. So,
Oh, nice.
Castles of Burgundy Special Edition, that's like 400 and something at the moment.
I quite like that
Not
technicality,
16.
though,
Uh,
He's thought about it.
Yeah,
It's
but
good.
it might be a technicality, but it's away from the main point of the question.
Yeah,
Well, okay, well,
you'll get them, but then people burn it in front of you as soon as you never get to play.
as soon as it gets into the top 100.
Yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough. But even like Pandemic
The original.
is in the top 100, but Iberia's better, in my opinion, and
Mm.
124, 126, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think that's fine because it's a different game. It's the
It's a reskin with the part of the expansion thrown in a few extra rules. It's not massively different. It's
no,
not
but
like
at least it's not Volume 2 or
Yeah.
Second Edition.
Can't you only own new games though? So you wouldn't even be able to have that one anyway.
no, it's just not in the top
It's not
100.
on top 100.
I thought you just said it, you'd get every new.
Yeah,
game.
you would still get every
Yeah.
new game, even if it
Oh,
ends
right.
up in the top 100.
I thought you could only play every new game because then you're like, it's a real gamble. You're like, what if it's a shit year of games? You'll be like, oh, I've got nothing to play.
That never happens.
But yeah, I generally think that there's normally. I am more bothered generally by numbers like 100 to 300 than I am the top 100. I have some games that are in the top 100 that I really like. Brass Birmingham is up there, Dune Imperium is up there. I've already played Legacy Season 1, but that's number 2, and that was a particular favourite of mine. But quite often I find the games that I really like tend to sit in that 2 to 300, or sort of 100 to 300, I should say. They tend to just be those sort of more mid-weight Euros, perhaps a little bit of a drier theme, perhaps the quality of the production isn't quite as nice. Or, maybe it's lovely like the special edition Castles of Burgundy just hasn't got there yet. But, yeah, I tend to find that's where my sweet spot is. Like, there are quite a few games in the top 100 I like, but a lot of my big favourites are numbers 100 to 300.
That's interesting, that. I wouldn't say that was the same for my collection at all. I'd say a lot of it is in the top 100.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I would say option 1. I couldn't get rid of my little babies.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be top 100. I'd just stay with it, and I'd have that for me. There's just too many in there I want to get rid of. Like Anachrony, an Arc Nova, TM.
And when everyone's talking about the new hotness, you can't touch
Then
it.
that's fine. I won't touch it. I'll still have my babies.
Kind of a shelf of shame to
No,
look at and
that's
ignore.
that's a good thing. You know it's a good thing. You know it's a good thing not to have that shelf. There's just too many in there that I'd love, and I couldn't. I'd find it difficult to part ways with them.
Yeah,
I think you would regret. I don't mean you. I mean whoever goes for option 1, I think would regret it within a couple of years.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you see like Voidfall, you would never have been able to play it.
Very true.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
True. Yeah, very true.
All those type of games that are just, there's always something, like you could pick out top 3 every year of each of your types and you'd be like, yeah, that is amazing game.
Can I just say...
And as much as like I love, Great Western Trail, there will be another Fister game out there that's maybe not quite as good because it's not in the top 100, but if you really couldn't play the top 100, that would do probably just as good a job.
Yeah.
Like 90% of the job that one in the top 100 would do. You could find something
This
to
is when
kind
the
of...
market collapses next year and there's no more board games ever being made, and we'll be sitting there on top of our 100 pile of games and
Yeah, but if I'm
laughing.
allowed from 100 down to 1,600...
No, only new games. Before we established that.
No, that was not the rules.
And now it's time for our penultimate turn. So, folks, Kerley, what have you got coming up?
So, in a couple of weeks' time, I've got my first play of Paladins of the West Kingdom, which has been on my shelf of shame for about 3 years.
I'm coming.
I remember ordering it online and being really excited about it, and then it sat in cellophane for 3 years.
Yeah,
Is it still in cellophane now?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it doesn't come out. So yeah, really looking forward to getting that to the table because I think it's going to be a game. I loved Architect, and I understand that it's very different, but equally as good, if not better. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that. It's a bit of a chunky monkey, apparently.
Yeah,
so.
it's got a few more choices to make, and it's got that sort of plethora of, do you want to upgrade something, or do you want to actually do an action that gives you something? You know, how much upgrading do you do when you stop doing the upgrading and start doing the actual bit that gives you points? There's a lot in there that I think you'll like. I think you originally had it up for 4-player, and I sort of said don't do 4-player because it'll take you forever. And it's just, I like it at 2-player. I think it's a great 2-player game.
Damn, we're playing it 4-player.
Are you playing at 4-player? Did you change it?
We'll be alright.
Who's the fourth?
It'll be fine.
It's Becky, I want to say. Yeah, Becky.
Okay.
It will be fine. It will take too long, and you will feel like you're waiting a while between turns, which is, I think, the downsides of it. And I think that's why it's better at 2 or 3-player.
I think with a learning game, I think that's okay
That'd
because
be
you're
fine.
just trying to take it all in on everyone else's turns.
You should probably just get your own back at me and make sure you keep me up until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I seem to like to do that to you.
Yeah, you do.
That is my favourite thing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing you will need to do most likely is to buy an insert because it barely fits back in the box
I was
without
going
one.
to say because that's Becky.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I've just printed one recently because I've had it sat on the top of a shelf with like a good sort of 1.5 centimetres of lift lid where I couldn't fit it all back in. I sleeved it and then couldn't fit it all back in the box just because I sleeved it. So I've had to print out an insert just to
I think
go
it'll
back
probably
in.
be one of those that, I'll probably do buy an insert or get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's just one of them.
Nice. Davey,
Um,
got around the corner.
So my office is nearly done. So I'm excited about that because then I'm going to play Marco Polo 2. So looking forward to playing that.
Yeah.
Really good, kind of mid-weight Euro. All about dice manipulation and then using camels to manipulate the dice to then go into action spots. Yeah, exactly. Trade those camels, but everyone's kind of got unique powers as well. And then you kind of go along and you get more actions for your kind of go down the Silk Road, but as you go down, you then get more actions which are on the board and open up. It depends which direction everyone goes. It's a good game, really good game. I played a lot of it when I first got it. I think it was over lockdown when I got it, so I played it with my family a lot, and then I kind of overplayed it, so I haven't brought it back to the table. And I thought, you know what, that you guys haven't played or experienced is Marco Polo 2s. So I thought that'd be a good little introduction game to the office, and
It's highly thought of.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's a lot of love.
Yeah. Every time I played it, I've really enjoyed it. So
Nice.
looking forward to getting to the table again.
Nice.
How about you, Dan?
I am trying to get more of my shelf of shame played and trying to get some of those games that have kind of like seen 1 or 2 plays and are still on the shelf. Specifically Feast for Odin.
Oh yeah.
I really like UA games anyway, but Feast for Odin is just one of those games that doesn't tend to come out very often, but I do really, really like it. I'm a massive fan of Tetris, so any games that have Tetraminos in it, I'm all over it. Although when looking at them, Isle of Cats, it's okay, but Feast for Odin is more crunchy, so I prefer the crunchy, and I do really like it.
Just set up and put down's a bit of a bitch.
Yeah, there's just a lot to it, isn't there? There's a lot to it.
A lot of moving parts.
Yes, but set aside that, I really like the game. It's really, it's really good.
I really enjoy it.
And although I think Caverna is more accessible, and I think that gets more plays around my table. But Feast for Odin is just if anyone wants a little bit more crunch and a little bit more weight on top of it, then that comes out. But it's not often. But I'm looking forward to getting that played. And also Bamboo. It's a little tiny game in the same universe as Bitoku, which I bought at the UK Games Expo this year that is still sat on my shelf of shame that needs to get out. So that is going to be played.
It's a Davey game, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing that. It looks like a
looks good.
like a good midweight game in a small box.
Yeah.
So,
They're good at doing that.
Yeah.
Digestible games, I think.
Yeah.
So like,
Yes. Is it White Castle was one of the new hotnesses at the moment.
Yeah, it's
isn't it?
good.
Was, yeah, I couldn't. Essen, you couldn't get close to the table without waiting for
Really?
ages for a demo.
Yeah.
yeah.
You
So
played
I
it?
played that, yeah, and Three Ring, which is their other one.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, they're both really good.
Nice.
Both very good mid-weight games. They've lent towards the quicker side. So I think 2-player, we actually got White Castle done in like sub 70 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick.
Nice.
And it felt crunchy.
Yeah.
So they've
It looks
done a
good.
good job with that, really.
Yeah.
I did feel like, oh, I want more, but then when you look at it, if you had more, you probably would have done everything. So it's
Yeah.
actually better they trim that back
Dial it
and
back a bit.
yeah, give you a bit, of a tighter space to try
Nice.
and work.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
Right.
Devere catches my interest a lot at the moment.
yeah, that's as I said, they're really good at making kind of digestible, mid-weight yet crunchy games.
Nice. Nice. Adrian.
Yeah, I'm genuinely struggling. I think it's my new level of zen I've got over my shelf of shame, which means that I'm not.
You've ascended.
That's it.
You've risen above the shelf.
I'm not sort of scrambling to try and get more games in where I can just get through the shelf of shame quicker. So I'm really struggling. I think, and unfortunately, I think the timing's going to be slightly off on this from when we record to when we release it. But the news came out recently about a very exciting game by a publisher that I'm putting more and more trust in, which is Diablo, the board game.
Oh,
Yes.
By Glass Cannon
yes.
Unplugged.
Yes.
Oh.
Glass
And-
Cannon.
I immediately sent it to a couple of friends who went, yeah, I'm buying it. And I was like, well, I'll probably get it. They don't care buying it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think Diablo has that fandom about it. And I've not even
Yeah.
played Diablo 4, but
Me
Glass,
either, yeah.
Glass Cannon Unplugged, they're increasingly getting my respect for what they do with these IP board games. Whereas a lot of other companies that deal with big IPs feel like, I was thinking of Steamforged Games.
Steamforged Games, yeah.
Slowly losing my what's the term? Like how I feel about how they're going to produce a game, like my respect for like what they're going to do.
You played Frostpunk yet?
No, I haven't,
Yeah.
but I've seen people play it and it looks interesting
Right.
enough that I'd probably give it a go. Unfortunately, I didn't win one of the 14 copies given away at 24-hour event, but
We did have a few.
but yeah, Diablo came out and immediately it piqued my interest, and the Kickstarter is due out, I think, in the next sort of few months or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know when.
I imagine it'll be based on
I'm
the
going all in
IP
for that.
that it'd be like.
Go gangbusters.
Here's the basic pledge, which has a few bits, but here's the all-in pledge that has everything.
Which
Yeah.
I dislike, and with what they've done with Apex was they listened to a lot of feedback about how few characters you got in the base box, and how they put in loads of cool 3D parts, and they then took out a lot of the cool 3D parts and put more characters in, and you had a choice of both of them.
Yeah.
And I've got a funny feeling that they'll have looked at that for the Diablo as well, and maybe offering two different levels, like a gamer pledge and a sort of an artsy pledge where you get all the 3D printed stuff.
Have you seen that?
Depends how much.
I
Activision-
saw it advertised, and I'm happier now that I know it's them that's making it, because I wasn't aware of that. I kind of assumed it would be an IP kind of money grab, to be honest.
It'd be
So
interesting to know how they convert the mechanics of the video game into a
That's
board
my
game.
point.
Because
I'm
if
intrigued.
it's got dungeon crawler, as I've already mentioned, I'm going to step back. But but like what they did with Apex was fantastically made, and Apex. After playing Apex, I went, do you know what? This is not the kind of sort of game that I play, but it's clever in how they've done it.
I was totally
not a
off those
skin.
kind of games, and then we played Apex, and I was like, I've got to back this now because I can show it to a lot of people who are also off those kind of games, and I reckon I'd get them back into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We played Dying Light, that needed a bit of work at Essen, but I think they've done some good stuff with it, and with a bit of polishing, it could turn into a really good rendition of that. I've been really pessimistic about Kickstarters generally at the moment. I don't tend to even really pay them too much attention at the moment. But when I saw that one come out, I thought, this could be the one that...
Who's the publisher for Dying Light?
It's what, the board game or
The board game.
The board game is still in like beta mode, but it's Glass Cannon.
Glass Cannon as well.
Glass Cannon, yeah.
So they've been doing some really good things that I've seen with board game with
They've got
video
some
game
big
IPs.
They've been literally swinging with big IPs now, haven't
I reckon
they?
especially once you get Apex, imagine going, look, we've got the Apex IP, and look, we've done stuff that people love with it. I reckon you can probably get quite a good buy-in to picking up other IPs. So I'm not quietly because I'm announcing it, but I'm optimistic on a game that I probably wouldn't be if it was with a different publisher, even for the same IP.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
I'm quite looking forward to see what they do with it.
And with that, our final turn is wrapping up and victory points are about to be scored. Thank you everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe and review on your podcast player of choice. And we ask you to share the podcast with at least one other person who you think would enjoy this. Also, if you want to support the show and become a subscriber to help shape our future content, you can visit our page on Ko-fi. And also, it's coming back, folks, the Christmas quiz. The Christmas quiz. I'm excited. Are you excited?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to a better showing than I gave last time because I was very disappointed.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
You still beat me, didn't you?
Yeah, I know, but JP won. I mean,
What?
it's JP.
He can't win again, can he?
He did pick the most awkward questions.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just come up with some that are like,
Yeah.
Which mechanic was made in 1958 that featured in...
How many tokens are in this board game?
Name the third playtester on this really obscure game from...
Ridiculous.
Last name only, yeah.
We will be back again next time with another episode, but until then, whose turn is it?
Anyway.